everybody, Invisiblekatana here, and today I would like to discuss my memories with the Xbox. The OG Xbox, Microsoft's first foray into BBC, big black consoles of course, the Duke, shout out to the white and black buttons, all that good stuff. And the Xbox is an interesting thing for me. In fact, I'll share a minute little secret with you guys. This is actually the second time I'm doing this episode because I did it this morning, driving into work, and it was a bit low energy. I was, partly being tired, but also I barely remembered anything. Like normally I'd pick a topic and I'm like, oh, I'll just talk and boom, I got a million things to say. I don't when it comes to the original Xbox. And I was like, wow, I was really struggling this morning. It took me till the end of the episode to even remember all the games I own, and I only own like 5. And that's crazy. And it's like, that's how little I remember my Xbox. So I had to let you guys in on that little secret. But since I went through all that and actually have some memories, I can make this a bit more of a succinct episode and go through some of the things that I should be talking about when I'm like, hey, memories of my Xbox. And then I remember nothing. So just to kick things off, when I got my Xbox, and I'm sure, there are going to be a couple things in here that I know I've already mentioned in other episodes. But when I first got my Xbox, I wanted a GameCube. I didn't know I was getting an Xbox. I didn't ask for a console or anything like that. It was just like a random thing. Both me and my aunt got Xboxes. And I remember going to my grandparents' house. We got the full setup. It was like, here's the Xbox, here's the carrying bag for the Xbox, here's the DVD remote for the Xbox, like the whole setup. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Xbox. Like, oh man, at the time, history kind of repeating itself, but at the time it was like Xbox had just come out. It was the first year it came out because I got the dual disc, which was, Sega GT Racing 2002 or 3 and Jet Set Radio Future, which of course that was great. But it was when the Xbox first came out. It had to have been the year because I'm pretty sure it came out in 2003. If not, if it was 2002, then I got it, the very next year. But I'm pretty sure it was the year it came out. And so I was like, oh man, I would have, I wanted a GameCube. Like I said, I didn't ask for it or anything like that. It was just, the console was just coming out, and I knew I want these couple of things that were already out there for GameCube as far as I knew, and then Xbox kind of had nothing. There was nothing that I knew about in terms of Xbox, this new console that just didn't really have much at launch. So I was just like, man, that kind of sucks. But then of course, played the games, played my Sega GT Racing. I already knew I wouldn't like that, but I gave it a shot anyway. I mentioned this before. I just don't like racing games. So I'm just not a racing fan, and realistic racing games just don't do it for me. Bring back Split Second. I'll say that every chance I get. But I just didn't like it, and I was like, yeah, of course. I knew this would happen, but hey, it's a racing game. I'm gonna try it because I only have 2 games. That's all I, we didn't get extra games with it or anything. We got the 2 games it came with, so I was like, this is option number 1, and then you flip that bad boy over and you get option number 2, which is one of the greatest things of all time, Jet Set Radio Future. I love that game. I love the music in that game. I still have some of the music on my phone to this day. Shout out to Aisle 10 by Scapegoat Wax. I love that song. Also, the song Statement of Intent is, it's the same band that does the Powerpuff Girls theme song. For anyone that didn't know that, there's a random little fun fact for you. The band that does that song, Statement of Intent, is the band that did the Powerpuff Girls theme song. So there you go. But I always loved that game. I was a huge graffiti person. I think I got more into graffiti after that game, actually, because there's another graffiti game that's going to be coming up, and I was like super into graffiti when that game ended up coming out. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But loved Jet Set Radio Future, and I played a little bit of Jet Grind Radio. I mentioned that in the Dreamcast episode. I did play that for a little bit, and when I ended up playing Future, I was like, this is awesome. You love the music, the gameplay is just super fun, all the characters are really cool. Yo-Yo was definitely my favorite character. I always liked Yo-Yo. And we were on the same wavelength, me and that guy, because he had a crush on the same character I did, and I want to say it was Ruth. I think it was her, the girl with the bright blue and white. Her. It was like, yeah, he gets it. This is why Yo-Yo is my favorite character. We both understand. But always loved that game. I always thought that was super cool. It was also an insane game where I don't know if I ever unlocked every character in that game. And it was always the weirdest thing in the world to me, where it was like, I think I unlocked less than half the characters. And I was like, okay, there's a lot of people. You go through the game, you unlock characters. And it was like, no, you can just find people. I beat the game, and this is the only reason I remember this other random character, but Jazz. from the game. She was in the first game also, but she was an unlockable character in the second one. And I'm almost 100% certain from the memory I have, and I think this is why I remember her so well, I didn't unlock her until I beat the main story of the game, and then I just found her in a random spot, and then I like raced her or something. And I was like, oh, this is weird. Like I think it was the first game I ever played that was like that, where you can see the menu of all the characters like a fighting game, and it's all these question marks and stuff. It's like, oh, this is what I can unlock. And when you first start playing, you just assume, oh, okay, I go through the game, I unlock more characters. And then it's like, no, you have to find a lot of the characters actually. So that was interesting. And like I said, I don't believe that I ever actually ended up doing that. So that was an interesting experience, just being like, wow, this is really weird. You have to like find people. So I always thought that was an interesting element of that game. But I always loved Jet Set Radio Future, still a great game. At some point I will get Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, because of course it's, you know, inspired by that, so I'd love to pick that game up one day. But Jet Set Radio Future was the game for a good minute. Like, for a good minute, that was the game that I had. Excuse me. And after that, I don't know the exact order of when I got some of these other games. I'm trying to like remember it in my head, like what the order was, just based on this was the game I was playing, and I can remember the room I was sitting in. So I believe the next game must have been Terminator 3, which seems insane because, well, no, Terminator 3 did come out in like 2003 or something like that. So that actually probably makes a whole lot of sense. If I got the console for Christmas, I think I got the game like sometime that next year. And Terminator 3, actually a decent game. Rise of the Machines, granted not my favorite of the movies. Of course, kind of stop at after 3 anyway, but the game was fun. You play through, you can actually play in the future. And I mentioned this in the arcade episode specifically. I remember bringing this game up because they had Centipede and Missile Command, and you could unlock those as just extra games. Once you could like find them out in the world, and then you could just unlock them as actual video games. And then you just go to a special menu and it's like, here you go, Centipede and Missile Command. And I played the crap out of those, and that's how I fell in love with Centipede. It was because of Terminator 3 of all things. So the video game specifically. But good time. I definitely loved that game. Mostly, playing in the future, and also the hand-to-hand segments. There were a couple of like boss battle moments where you fight whatever the Terminator version was in T3, and like the scene where they fight in the bathroom, and it's like grappling moves, and you can pick her up and like throw her in the stalls and like slam her head into the urinals, and like you just slam each other around. I'm a huge fan. Even ever since I was a kid, I've been like a huge fan of destructible environments, and that's just really fun. It's just two giant robots from the future just slamming through walls and throwing each other into things, and it's like, this is really, it's just fun. So I would always go back to like those two levels, because I think it's like I think there's two levels where you do that sort of boss fight with her, and I always remember those being like real highlights, because it, the rest of the game is just it's a first-person shooter, but in those segments you get like a third-person like just combat segment, and it was like, this is fun. It's stiff, but it's fun. It was enjoyable back in the day, and I could always just go through that and just throw each other through some toilet stalls, and it's entertaining. Destructible environments never fail me, so definitely enjoyed that for a hot minute. And then another movie-based game that I had for another movie that I think gets crapped on like quite a bit, especially now. People act like it's just trash. Van Helsing. I thought that was a really good movie as a kid. I watched the crap out of that. I even had that on DVD. Like I really enjoyed Van Helsing when I was a kid, and I still think it's a decent movie. Like I sure, cheesy and whatnot. Also got some crazy moments to it. Like the way the story actually goes, they do some surprising twists where it's like, didn't see that coming. But I always enjoyed that movie, and of course, it's like you enjoy a cool action movie. I was like, well, let me get a cool action game. And it's one of those games that starts off with a boss fight, because that's how the movie starts off, where you fight Frankenstein's monster. So that's pretty cool. And you go through and you do some stuff, fight some vampires, fight some werewolves and all that crap. You go through the game. I don't remember much of it. I just remember it was the movie, and that was it. And it was fun, and I enjoyed it. I also think I mentioned this in like the old cheat codes episode, where it had the weirdest cheat codes on earth, where it was like, hey, you can just change the textures of like the entire game, and just all the backgrounds and all the enemies will just have like a weird swirling effect on them. They were not the coolest cheat codes, but they had like a dozen of them, and it was just textures. It was just like, here's a really weird texture. Like, it would give you epilepsy. If I'm being totally honest, some of those textures moved real fast, and I'm like, this is just weird. And then you can do it where it was the background and the enemies, and then Van Helsing was on his own thing. So all the enemies would match the background, which definitely made them blend in. And then Van Helsing could have his own texture where he could look normal, or he could have the exact same textures. You could have literally the entire game, characters and all, just have like a weird smoky swirly effect just flying across it at like hyper speed. And it was the weirdest thing. And it was like, why do they have like a dozen texture cheat codes? Why aren't there like fun codes in this game? So you can look into that if you have any random interest. But that was my time with Van Helsing. Even though I loved the movie, and the game I did think was entertaining. It sucked, like once you beat it, it was one of those games where like, okay, you're kind of just done. And then the cheat codes did not really add much to it, so that was unfortunate. But I still enjoyed it. Definitely a fun time with that. I'd say it's crazy, but I think I got the most out of, at least for my 2 movie tie-in games, I got the most out of Terminator more for Centipede, more than anything. It was because of Centipede. I would literally play that game just to play Centipede sometimes. And, I try out Missile Command because I liked it, but not as much as Centipede. But I probably played that. That's probably one of my most played. It would be like Jet Set Radio. I don't know. My number 1 game might be, actually, it might be Jet Set Radio. It's probably Jet Set Radio, because I think after that it might end up being Legacy of Kain Defiance, which it might be my favorite. It's hard to say, because it's between, but as far as like my Xbox games go, the very minute amount, the handful of Xbox games I even own, it would be between definitely Legacy of Kain Defiance or Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure. Those are the 2 games. Like if I had to pick 2, those would be the 2. And if I had to pick 1, it would be hard to choose, because I love the Soul Reaver franchise, even though I never beat the first one. I don't think I even ever played the second one. I watched my cousin literally beat the ending of that game. I think I may have played like a tiny portion towards the end there, and then that was it. And then I ended up owning the 3rd game, or however you want to define it, because technically Soul Reaver 1 and 2 is a part of Legacy of Kain, but then there's Blood Omen Legacy of Kain, and then there's Blood Omen 2, which is like a spin-off. Like that's so for anyone that doesn't know the origin or the weird story of Legacy of Kain, there's like 6 Legacy of Kain games. There's a bunch of them. And the first one is like Nosgoth, and then that's like its own weird little thing. And then you have Soul Reaver. No, it might be Legacy of Kain 1, might be after that. And then Soul Reaver 1. And then they made Blood Omen 2, which is like a weird spin-off. And then Soul Reaver 2 came out, and that's a continuation. And then Defiance came out, and that is unfortunately at this point the last game in the franchise, because the story wasn't technically done. It was just like a chapter was finished. So I don't know if anything will ever happen where that comes back, sadly. But love those games. I would love a full remake. I mean, I know they did the remaster, so odds are we're not getting a remake of 1 and 2 since we just got the remasters. But I would love a full remake of those. I would love a remake of Defiance, which I thought honestly was a fantastic looking game. Like, there's always just those games like, Metal Gear on the PS1 and heck, Metal Gear Solid 2 on PS2. Like, those are just games where it's like, man, they just figured it out, especially, MGS2. I felt like Legacy of Kain Defiance was one of those games where I was like, this game looks really, really good. Like the particle effects they have for like explosions and weird stuff you can do. The environments, of course, look insane, and the dialogue for any Soul Reaver is just god tier. So if you've never just like watched some cutscenes of Soul Reaver, please do, because you will enjoy it. If you don't want to bother buying the Soul Reaver games, just watch like a giant YouTube recap and just let them like play cutscenes for you. I'm telling, the story is wild. Like I love the story of Soul Reaver, despite never beating the first one, never owning the second one, and then finally beating Defiance. But always love that game, love the crap out of that one. And the fact that you can play both characters, because you get to play Raziel from the Soul Reaver games, and then obviously Kain, who the entire franchise is named under, the Legacy of Kain. Absolutely amazing. And you play in different time periods, because they, like I think even the first game kind of messes with time a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but I know the second game does, and then the third game does the exact same thing. So it's really fun. I love what they do in that game, and Kain's abilities are wild. As a vampire, he can like suck people's blood from a distance. You just injure people enough, and then boom, you can just suck their blood from a distance. And it's like, that's crazy. That's a crazy attack. And the Soul Reaver is such a cool looking sword. Like even the real version, like this weird like wavy blade, looks super cool. Crazy connection here. It looks a lot like the sword from Mortal Kombat 4. I think it was like Liu Kang's blade that he has, that he can like randomly pull out in Mortal Kombat 4, it looks like that, where I was like, it kind of looks like the Soul Reaver, like it's just a wavy blade. But I love the Soul Reaver games, and Defiance is definitely the one that I have the most real experience with. So definitely a highlight of my Xbox time was Legacy of Kain Defiance. And like I said, I mentioned the other game, which is Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure, which can be shortened to Mark Echo's Getting Up, or if you just want to call it Contents Under Pressure, but I like to say the whole name just because I'm weird like that. And back in the day, I loved Mark Echo. Like, just the clothing brand I thought was super cool. I liked the kind of graffiti style of everything. And I think that's the only clothing brand where I was ever like, I like this clothing brand. I used to wear a lot of Tommy Hilfiger because they made simple, cool stuff. So I like Tommy Hilfiger. But as far as stuff where I was like, I kind of search it out, Echo is the only one I've ever done that for. And I still have like I have like one Echo shirt that I love, and it still fits, which is crazy. But I never wear it because I don't want to mess it up. I actually like that shirt a lot, so I just keep it for nostalgic purposes. But I remember when I was a kid, and it was like, okay, I like Echo, and then I see this game coming out, and I'll never forget. And this is one of those super weird, random, pointless things to have in your brain, but I will never forget. Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure, gets a 4 out of 5 on XPlay. And you can look that up, and I know I'm right. So that got a 4 out of 5 on XPlay. Adam Sessler did the review. And I always remember that, because that was how I saw the game. And I was like, oh, it's a Mark Echo game. That's weird. And it was about graffiti and all this other stuff. And it got a 4 out of 5, so that's pretty good. And eventually I ended up getting in the game. And it was my first ever collector's edition video game. And I still have it to this day. I love that game. You can buy it on Steam, by the way. You can buy it on Steam. You can also buy Defiance, Legacy of Kain Defiance on Steam. You can get all the Legacy of Kain games on Steam. So you can get all of those. You can get Mark Echo's Getting Up. I have no idea if you can buy Jet Set Radio Future anymore, but I hope you can. And maybe you'll just be able to get whatever remake or whatever Stake is doing. I hope we get some real news on that soon, because I really want them to like do an actual remake of Jet Set Radio. Maybe they'll combine both the games. I think that's what they said they would do. Anyway, Mark Echo's Getting Up, Contents Under Pressure, is a great game. I always loved that game back in the day. Like I said, that was during probably my largest graffiti phase, where I'm just like, I love it a lot. Never done it myself, but I always appreciated it. Being from Detroit, I've seen money all over the place. I see them, Porab or Porab. I always said Porab, but it might be Porab. I don't know. But I see the tags all over the place. I pay attention to where people are. So I always loved it. I was like, man, I like graffiti. I think it's a fun game. It's got some interesting action. I like the music. It's, I'm even now, I don't really listen to rap like that, but that game has a lot of good like remixes of songs and stuff that I just like. And I was like, that was the first time I ever listened to music going to sleep, was to the soundtrack, because of the collector's edition. It came with the actual CD. So I would go to sleep listening to like the hardest of music, and I would just be passing out. But great songs in that game. And it was fun. I always love that game. It's nice when I see random YouTube videos where people are like, hey, it's Contents Under Pressure. And I'm like, oh, people remember. So I always love that game. Like I said, first ever collector's edition of a game. Still have it to this day, and it's in great condition. The only thing that is messed up about my collector's edition is there's an art book, and the art book is basically the main character's name is Train, and so he has like his own like graffiti book, and so people would like put their tags in or like give him inspiration and stuff, and he would like scribble some of his ideas in his own book. So it was just like his little art book, his sketchbook. So it was an art book, and then like in the back half of it, you could do your own sketches and like make your own tags and stuff. And I always left it blank. And one day, I went to my grandmother's, and my Xbox always stayed at my grandparents' house. So it was always over there. And so one day, I go over there, pop open my beautiful collector's edition, and I look in the back of my art book. I don't know why. I think I was just checking it out, because I was like, oh, it's been a minute. Let me look at my old games. And I open this thing up, and on the back of the book, my little cousins wrote in it, and it came with a silver marker. And so they used the silver marker. It was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was like, we can use this marker to destroy this thing it came with. And they wrote in the back of it, shout out to my cousins, my little cousins, Christian and Aiden. I love you both, but I still think of that to this day. And it wasn't like a back couple of pages. It was the back hard cover. It was the back of it, not the actual back of the book. It was the inside back flap, which is just a pure white page. And it was like, it couldn't have been just one page over. If it was 2 full pages, I could have ripped them out. I could have just like sliced them out. No big deal. No muss, no fuss. But nope, it was the final page, and then it goes right over to the final like little hard book, the inside part of the back hard cover. And it's just there. And it's like, I think of that all the time, just in silver, just right there. fantastic. But fortunately, that is the only thing that's messed up. And obviously, it is what it is. I can't. There's nothing I can do to fix it. But I think of that quite often. I'm just like, it would be in perfect condition to this day. Although I do think it had a slipcover. If I'm not mistaken, I'm sure that came with a slipcover, and I lost that for sure. But I still got the steelbook. I still got the art book, the soundtrack, the silver marker it came with. That was the first time I ever saw a silver marker, I'm pretty sure. And I was like, this is sick. I didn't know you could do markers in silver. They're awesome. They're really cool. So that's awesome. And also, they branded it, because the main character Train has like a big yellow, or it's like an orange X that he spray paints on the back of his hoodie. And that's kind of like the big logo of the game. And they even put that little logo in silver on the marker. And it's like, they just branded it. And it was like, it's just, one of those little things. And it's like, that's cool. And I'm sure it didn't cost too much, well, this was also like during the original Xbox era, everything was cheaper, on Earth. So I guess that doesn't apply to much these days. Who knows how much it would cost if it came out now. And it's just like a steelbook and a book and a CD and, an art book and a marker. It would be like $400. But we were able to pick it up. I got it from Great Lakes Crossing. I'm in Michigan, so you know where that one is. And that was just a good day. Crazy moment too. It was just like, holy crap, we went to the Echo store. They just had it in there and it looked awesome. And I was able to get it. And I love that game to this day. I haven't played it in over a decade, of course, but I still remember a lot about that game, and it was super fun. So I highly recommend picking that up on Steam if you get the opportunity, or just look up a review, see if you might like it. Also, super crazy, just throwing this one in there. Diddy is in the game and you can beat him up. Just saying, somebody might care about that. He's in the game as a villain. You get to beat up Diddy. So that's there. Boom, there you go. If anything makes you want to get that game, there you go. But that's just about it when it comes to Xbox. Like I said, it's small. The little things that I have that I actually remember mostly come from, doing this episode earlier and remembering every game that I had. But that's really about it. I was never losing my mind over the Xbox. It was always at the grandparents' house. I loved it when I played it. Of course, I got my couple of Xbox games on there. And there were games I wanted. For sure, come on. Fusion Frenzy was the game that escaped me. That was the one. I think of that a lot. Like, man, I wanted Fusion Frenzy so bad. And then also the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game. I don't know what game I had. I don't know if that was on like the double disc with, the racing game and Jet Set Radio. But for some reason, I had something where I could watch trailers of other games. So I don't know if it was those or if it was maybe in the Terminator game. There was something I had where I could randomly watch these trailers. And I always thought the Buffy the Vampire game looked really cool. And I was like, of course I loved the show back in the day. But the game just looked cool. And I was like, man, I wish I could play that. And I never got that game. I never got to play the game. None of that stuff. So it was unfortunate. But I had my small little moment with the Xbox. And the 360 itself, I have like way more memories with. Like that was like a full-on step. Oh, I'm being pulled over. No, I'm not. Oh, it's not pulling me over. That's crazy. Well, I'm Audi 5000 because that blows for that guy. Ooh, I legit, man, that's a crazy ending to this episode. I legit thought I was getting pulled over, and then the cop went right past me. That's nuts. I'm going home, and I'm ending this episode. So, of course, if you guys have any thoughts on the Xbox, please let me know. Good God, I did not need to be pulled over. My insurance would have went up. But if you guys have any thoughts on the Xbox, OG, or whatnot, or whatever, please put them down in the comment section below. I'm just checking my rear view mirror. Okay, he's gone. He's officially gone. Like, they were, oh my God, that is terrifying. I thought it was weird because the cop, I didn't say anything, but when I was talking about Buffy, I'm like, this cop stopped like right next to us at this red light. Like, he didn't pull up a little further. It was weird that he stopped next to me, and I'm like, this is awkward. Why is he, like, he's got like a couple extra feet. Why didn't he pull forward? That's weird. That's suspicious. Thank God. I don't have money for that right now. But if you guys want to support me, hey, comment down below, all the usual YouTube crap. But thanks for watching.